In the high-stakes world of Silicon Valley, few figures have captured the public's imagination quite like Elizabeth Holmes. A visionary entrepreneur, touted as the next Steve Jobs, she mesmerized investors with promises of revolutionizing healthcare. Yet, behind the charismatic facade was a story of ambition, deceit, and the unraveling of a billion-dollar empire. From her meteoric ascent as the world's youngest female self-made billionaire, to the shocking allegations of fraud that would rock the tech world, this is a tale that explores the fine line between innovation and deception. We'll uncover the truth behind the Theranos scandal and examine the impact of Elizabeth's actions on the tech industry and beyond.
You founded this company 12 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Tell them how old you were.
I was 19.
Elizabeth Holmes was born on February 3rd, 1984, in Washington, D.C., into a well-off and well-connected family. While not the wealthiest in the world, her parents both held well-regarded positions. Before Elizabeth was born, her mother was a congressional staffer, and she went on to work with other House representatives. Elizabeth's father, however, came from a line of rich men after his great-grandfather Christian Rasmus Holmes married the heiress of the Fleischmann yeast empire, Betty Fleischmann. The third generation, Elizabeth's parents, was not as wealthy as the first two, and her father often blamed his father and grandfather for wasting away family fortunes on excessive drinking and multiple marriages. Nonetheless, her parents, Noel Ann and Christian Rasmus Holmes IV, provided a nurturing environment for her early interests in science and entrepreneurship. Her father, Christian Holmes, had a varied career that included working for Enron before transitioning into government service. Growing up in Houston, Texas, Elizabeth attended St. John's School, a prestigious private institution known for its rigorous academic standards. From a young age, Elizabeth showed an interest in learning. She was reportedly an eager reader and showed a particular interest in science and technology. At age 9, the young Elizabeth wrote a letter to her father. In this letter, she described to him that what she really wanted out of life is to discover something new, something that mankind didn't know was possible to do. Upon graduating from St. John's School, Elizabeth enrolled at Stanford University in 2002 to study chemical engineering. Stanford, known for its innovative spirit and proximity to Silicon Valley, seemed like the perfect place for Elizabeth to further her interests and entrepreneurial ambitions. It was during her time at Stanford that Elizabeth began to contemplate what she could do to shake the healthcare system. At age 18, Elizabeth proposed a novel idea to a professor: a patch you could wear on your skin that would scan for infections and release antibiotics as needed. However, when Professor Phyllis Gardner told Elizabeth her idea wouldn't work, Gardner recalls Elizabeth brushing off her professional opinion. It seemed that even at this young age, Elizabeth was more involved with the idea of being profound than the idea of being correct. At the age of 19, Elizabeth made a bold decision that would change her life path. She dropped out of Stanford to pursue becoming an entrepreneur full-time. Her motivation stemmed from a deeply personal place. Elizabeth had a fear of needles, a common phobia that inspired her to explore alternatives to traditional blood testing methods. In 2003, armed with her vision and determination, Elizabeth founded Theranos in Palo Alto, California. The name Theranos was a combination of therapy and diagnosis, reflecting her mission to transform healthcare through new diagnostic technologies. Elizabeth's goal for Theranos was to revolutionize blood testing by creating a device capable of running comprehensive tests using only a few drops of blood, obtained through a minimally invasive prick, rather than traditional, more intrusive methods.
To run comprehensive laboratory tests from a tiny sample or a few drops of blood to eliminate the tubes and tubes of blood that traditionally have to be drawn from an arm, and replaced it with the nanotainer.
This breakthrough technology, as Elizabeth envisioned it, would make testing faster, cheaper, and more accessible, potentially saving lives through early detection. Elizabeth's decision to leave Stanford was unconventional, but displayed her belief that formal education wasn't the only path to achieving her goals and making waves in the technology field. She was determined to prove that age and experience were not barriers to innovation. The core technological innovation behind Theranos was its novel microfluidic technology. This advanced system allowed for the analysis of blood samples at a microscopic level, meaning you could get accurate testing with improved efficiency, even when taking less blood. Elizabeth hoped she could reduce the volume of blood required for testing, but also significantly shorten the time needed to obtain results, a game changer in an industry where turnaround times can be critical for patients. Elizabeth's vision extended beyond mere technological innovation. She believed wholeheartedly in the potential of Theranos to shake up the healthcare industry by empowering individuals with greater control over their health through accessible and affordable diagnostic testing. This vision resonated deeply with investors and supporters, who were captivated by more than just Elizabeth's innovation. They were attracted to her charisma, confidence, and compelling narrative of transforming an industry ripe for disruption. To get started, Elizabeth used the money her parents saved for her education and put it all into Theranos. In its early years, Theranos garnered significant attention for its ambitious goals and potential to revolutionize healthcare. The company's promise to deliver complete blood tests from a single drop of blood quickly captured the attention of the media, investors, and the public alike. Theranos' initial success and rapid growth underscored just how exciting the idea was to those in the industry. This technology, if possible, like Elizabeth claimed, would be life-changing. She attracted big-name investors and formed partnerships with major healthcare providers and pharmaceutical companies. The first board member of Theranos was Stanford chemical engineering professor Channing Robertson. Elizabeth pitched her idea and brought him on board to help connect with other reputable investors. In fact, Robertson put her in touch with venture capitalists that helped her raise $6 million in capital by the end of 2004, only 1 year after Theranos began. Their support was not only necessary for the funding of Theranos, but it helped give Elizabeth credibility in her ideas. Elizabeth's ability to articulate her vision with conviction and determination to challenge what society considered impossible quickly had her compared to other visionaries and leaders like Steve Jobs. Elizabeth embraced this comparison with a full heart. She became known to wear her signature black turtlenecks, hold an intense focus, and speak with a much lower voice, claiming it was a testament to her passion and determination to bring her ideas to life, just like the idol she emulated. Her persona was a large part of the attention drawn to Theranos. Her image as a visionary entrepreneur fueled excitement from overlookers. Elizabeth learned how to speak about biotechnology in simple terms, creating excitement among her peers. She was not just going after the attention of venture capitalists and big wholesalers. She wanted everyone to hear her story and feel compelled by it. She was hoping to make a change that would be felt by individual households. Central to Theranos' early success were some key milestones that validated their claims and gave some reliability to the never-before-seen approach. For example, Theranos developed a mini testing device capable of analyzing different biomarkers in a small blood sample, enabling them to offer many different diagnostic tests in very short amounts of time. According to Elizabeth, the results were fast without losing accuracy, a key point in what helped Theranos gain speed so early on. She promised to not only improve patient outcomes, but to make healthcare and testing more affordable in a country where healthcare costs could become unmanageable for many. In 2009, Elizabeth brought Ramesh Sunny Balwani to the Theranos team as her right-hand man. The two met in 2002 on a trip to Beijing through Stanford. Sunny became the chief operating officer, and it was soon believed they engaged in more than just business relations, starting a romantic relationship while working together at Theranos. By 2010, Theranos was valued at a whopping $1 billion, following multiple rounds of investment. And in December of 2013, Elizabeth took Theranos to the forefront of the media for the first time, a decade after first starting the company. She broke the news publicly by announcing that Theranos signed a strategic partnership with Walgreens, the established healthcare center, with more than 8,570 locations across the United States. Following the news of this, Elizabeth promised that Theranos blood tests would be available within 5 miles of every American household. According to some investors, she made claims that the tests were already being used by the U.S. military in their medevac helicopters, a claim she would later recant when under oath. Additionally, Theranos partnered with Safeway and other major healthcare providers to expand its network of testing locations. Other notable members joined the board of directors and advisors, including Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, esteemed former U.S. Secretaries of State, and Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle. These influential board members, along with other seasoned executives and healthcare experts, played a crucial role in shaping Theranos' strategic direction. Collectively, their experience helped elevate Theranos and establish the company as the next big innovator. In May 2015, Theranos was cleared by the FDA for testing of herpes, the first and only approval. Soon after, Theranos announced their first medical device that would bring their claims to life. The Edison, created in their Palo Alto lab and named after Thomas Edison, was supposedly a small, groundbreaking device that would be able to take blood by finger pricking, eliminating the need for traditional methods. At its core, the Edison allowed for multiple tests to be taken at once from just a single drop of blood. According to Elizabeth, the Edison could perform over 240 different tests, covering a wide range of health indicators ranging from cholesterol, blood glucose levels, complex genetic markers, and infectious diseases. If true, this was a significant leap forward in diagnostic testing, something never before seen. In her claims to make Theranos the most advanced biotech company, Elizabeth was challenging other market leaders like LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics, two large companies using tubes of blood to garner test results that took several days to get back. In September of 2014, Elizabeth was named one of the richest women in America by Forbes. She was quickly becoming a media star on top of an entrepreneur, appearing on the cover of magazines like Fortune and Forbes. In 2015, Elizabeth was considered the youngest self-made billionaire in the country and landed on Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people. Over the next few years, investors poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into Theranos, hoping its success would skyrocket. In 2016, Forbes estimated the net worth of the company to be $800 million. Taking into account the $724 million of capital raised so far. In 2017, then Vice President Joe Biden visited the Theranos lab in Palo Alto and praised Elizabeth as an inspiration to many. Under Elizabeth's leadership, Theranos gained significant media attention in the span of only a few years and created partnerships with some of the largest nationwide names. But there was some less than ideal attention pointed at the company as well. Theranos was thought by many to be a secretive company. And back in 2015, many articles labeled the company as controversial or questioned its accuracy. Just as fast as Theranos gained traction, it began to unravel. It all started in 2015. A whistleblower came forward to express concerns about their flagship testing device, the Edison. John Carreyrou, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the Wall Street Journal, wrote a series of damning articles claiming the results were unreliable and that the firm had been using commercially available machines made by other manufacturers for most of their testing. His reporting dismantled the carefully crafted narrative Elizabeth had pushed, exposing a company with some dark secrets. According to these articles, Theranos was using the Edison for only a small amount of the 240 tests it claimed to perform. In fact, many articles claim the tests they were performing were done with vials of blood drawn from the arm, rather than only a few drops. Carrie Rowe pieced together a timeline that revealed a stark contrast between Theranos' claims and its real internal operations. The pivotal moment was when Carrie Rowe revealed that Theranos had been misleading investors, patients, and healthcare providers about the true capabilities of its technology. Elizabeth fired back. She defended the Theranos testing practices and called the journal's reporting factually and scientifically erroneous. However, only one day later, Theranos halted the use of its blood collection vials for all tests but herpes, following an inspection and pressure from the FDA. Later that month, the FDA released 2 reports citing 14 concerns, including calling the Edison an uncleared medical device. Both of these reports were heavily redacted. Amid the criticism, Elizabeth continued on with her obligations. 1 week after the reports were released, she was interviewed on stage at the outlet's conference in Laguna Beach. However, the criticism might have had some effect on the company internally, as the board of directors was changed during this same time. Henry Kissinger and George Shultz were eliminated as directors and were moved to a new board of counselors. The company also formed a separate medical board. Partnerships started to fail as the Safeway collaboration fell short, even after they invested $350 million into building out hundreds of clinics within its supermarkets to offer Theranos blood tests. Other experts began to come forward to offer their opinion. I knew she'd had this brilliant idea and that she had managed to convince all these investors and scientists, said Dr. Jeffrey Flyer, the former dean of Harvard Medical School. She was self-assured, but when I asked her several questions about her technology, she didn't look like she understood, added Dr. Flyer, who never formally assessed her technology. It seemed a bit odd, but I didn't come away thinking it was a fraud. Elizabeth soon faced scrutiny from the FDA, CMS, and SEC. Investigations were launched into their testing and technology, and the FDA found deficiencies in quality control that led to sanctions and regulatory actions taking place. But this was only the start of the legal action about to begin. In 2016, Walgreens pulled out of its partnership with Theranos and suspended the services currently taking place at the Palo Alto Walgreens location. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services imposed sanctions that barred Elizabeth and Sonny from operating a lab for 2 years, underscoring her ability to meet the basic needs of patient safety and care. They gave Theranos 10 days to address the issues. If they didn't, Elizabeth and Sonny were at risk of being banned from lab business. According to Elizabeth, this was the worst-case scenario. Sonny left Theranos, and in his place, 3 new board members were added. Fabrizio Bonanni, a former executive vice president of biotech firm Amgen, former CDC director William Foge, and former Wells Fargo CEO Richard Kovacevic. Theranos then voided the past 2 years of their blood test results from the Edison, correcting tens of thousands of blood test reports, according to the journal. In June of 2016, Elizabeth's net worth was revised to nothing, just 2 years after she was estimated to be worth $4.5 billion. Theranos' evaluation was lowered from $9 billion to just $800 million. But Elizabeth wasn't finished. In August of 2016, following the warnings and whistleblowers, Elizabeth revealed the newest of Theranos technologies. The mini-lab was revealed at a conference for the American Association for Clinical Chemistry. In selling the device, instead of opening clinics, Theranos sought to sidestep CNS sanctions, which didn't prohibit research and development. In October of 2016, Theranos investor Partner Fund Management sued the company for $96.1 million, the amount they invested back in February of 2014, plus damages. They accused the company of securities fraud, and the lawsuit was settled in May of 2017 for an undisclosed amount. Theranos later laid off 340 employees as it closed clinical labs and wellness centers in an attempt to pivot toward focusing on sales of the mini lab. Theranos was hit with yet another lawsuit in November, this time with Walgreens suing for breaching their contract and attempting to recover $140 million, which was also settled later on in 2017. Things only got worse for Elizabeth and Theranos. More layoffs occurred, followed by a failed lab inspection. Theranos was forced to settle with the CMS in April of that year, agreeing to pay $30,000 and to not own or operate any clinical labs for 2 years following. They also settled with Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich over allegations that they advertised in misrepresented methods, accuracy levels, and reliability of their blood testing. Theranos agreed to pay $4.65 million back to its Arizona customers as part of a settlement deal. In 2018, the SEC charged Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani with massive fraud involving more than $700 million from investors. The SEC alleged that they had engaged in an elaborate scheme to deceive investors, exaggerating the capabilities of their technology and misrepresenting the company's financial situation. The SEC alleged that Elizabeth and Sunny knew their proprietary analyzer could only perform 12 of the hundreds of tests it claimed. In an attempt to resolve the claims against them, Elizabeth and Sunny gave up hold of the company, and Elizabeth gave up much of her stake in it. Sunny, however, refused to give up his, claiming he represented the company to the best of his ability. Just minutes before these charges were made public, Theranos announced that Elizabeth had stepped down as CEO and that the position was being taken over by the company's general counsel, David Taylor. Elizabeth still remained chairman of the board. Elizabeth and Sunny were arrested on criminal charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud, with prosecutors claiming she knew the tests were inaccurate and was purposely misleading investors. But Elizabeth clung remarkably close to her original story, even as her official trial began. As the trial kicked off, both Elizabeth and Theranos came under intense scrutiny. The truth about her character as a boss came to the surface, including the toxic corporate culture at Theranos. According to the testimony of former employees and whistleblowers, the workplace was characterized by secrecy, intimidation, and fear. The employees recall being under immense pressure to meet unrealistic goals and deadlines set by management. The pursuit of their innovation came at the expense of many ethical considerations. Employees who did come forward with concerns were met with threats of professional repercussions or worse, legal action. Initially set to take place in July of 2020, Elizabeth's criminal trial was delayed due to the pandemic and pushed into 2021. In March of that year, however, she announced she was expecting her first child, with the heir to the Evans Hotel Group, William Evans, delaying the trial further. Finally, in August 2021, the jury selection for Elizabeth's trial began. More than 80 potential jurors were brought into the San Jose courtroom for questioning over the course of 2 days to determine eligibility. But with national news already spreading about Theranos, there was a challenge in finding impartial members. A jury of 7 men and 5 women were found fit to join the trial. After 3 months of deliberation and testimony from over 30 witnesses, the fate of Elizabeth was in the hands of the jury, who deliberated for more than 50 hours before returning a verdict. In January of the next year, Elizabeth was found guilty on 4 of 11 federal charges, including 1 count of conspiracy to defraud investors, as well as 3 wire fraud counts tied to specific investors. she was found not guilty on 3 additional charges concerning defrauding patients and 1 charge of conspiracy to defraud patients. The jury returned no verdict on 3 of the charges concerning defrauding investors. Elizabeth was facing up to 20 years in prison, fines up to $250,000, and restitution for each count she was found guilty of. In July 2022, after 4 days of jury deliberation, Sonny was also found guilty of 10 counts of federal wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit federal wire fraud. Like Elizabeth, he faced up to 20 years in prison, as well as a fine of $250,000, plus restitution for each count of wire fraud and each conspiracy count. However, the trial wasn't over yet. Elizabeth's determination showed through, and she requested a new trial in September, claiming a key witness was expressing doubts about their testimony. In a court filing with the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, Elizabeth's attorneys said Adam Rosendorf, a former Theranos lab director who was one of the trial's main witnesses, arrived at her home on August 8th asking to speak with her. According to the filing, Rosendorf did not interact with Elizabeth, but did speak to her partner, Billy Evans. His shirt was untucked, his hair was messy, his voice slightly trembled, Evans wrote about Rosendorf. According to communications between Rosendorf and Elizabeth's lawyer, Rosendorf said when he was called as a witness, he tried to answer the questions honestly, but that the prosecutors tried to make everybody look bad. However, in a strange twist of events, after being called to the stand again, Rosendorf reaffirmed the truth behind his original testimony and said the government did not influence what he said. And in November of that year, Elizabeth's request for a new trial was denied. She was officially sentenced to 11 years in prison and is serving time in Bryan, Texas. Since her initial sentencing, time has been shaved off Elizabeth's time behind bars. In June of this year, Elizabeth's legal team again filed an appeal for a new trial, based on the grounds that some counts were left undecided on, bringing the possibility that her case should be overturned. According to her team, a former Theranos employee, King Shukdas, was allowed to testify as a scientific expert, without making him cross-testify his qualifications. They also claimed the judge should have allowed Elizabeth to introduce more evidence attaching the key prosecution witnesses, apparently some of which brought the competence of some witnesses into question. According to her lawyers, this evidence could have brought the case to a different close. However, appeals can take anywhere from weeks to months to be decided on, so we'll have to wait to see what happens next. The trial and conviction of Elizabeth Holmes marked a dramatic fall from grace for the once celebrated entrepreneur. The media's fascination with Elizabeth's rise and fall has been substantial. John Carreyrou's 2018 book, Bad Blood, provides a definitive account of the Theranos scandal. Director Adam McKay, known for The Big Short, secured the film rights to Carreyrou's book even before its publication, illustrating the widespread interest in Elizabeth's story. In June 2016, Deadline Hollywood announced that Jennifer Lawrence would portray Elizabeth in the film. Although Lawrence later withdrew from the project, Amanda Seyfried's Emmy Award-winning performance in the Dropout series further cemented Elizabeth's story in popular culture. The saga of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the ethical pitfalls in the pursuit of innovation. As the legal and personal chapters of Elizabeth's life continue to unfold, her story remains a stark reminder of the consequences of deception and the importance of accountability.